Okay, welcome everybody to this month's Blatchford Prosthetic Product Showcase webinar. I say this every time and I mean it. I'm excited for you to be on this webinar. I enjoy getting to look down the attendee list and see so many names that I recognize. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for joining us. And I hope you find this webinar helpful and something you can utilize in practice. So without further ado, I am going to see if I can get control of the presentation here. And what I'm going to do is, before we begin, just a couple of quick little housekeeping tips here. Everybody is on mute. That doesn't mean you can't talk to me. Everybody is on mute. I already see one hand up. I don't have a way to unmute you. So if you could use the question panel on the right-hand side, if that is a true hands up question that's in the attendee list, or you can use the webinar chat and I can check that. Those are the two best ways to get a hold of me. You can also obviously get a hold of me on my email at mike.magee@blatchfordus.com. You can register for any of our future webinars at blatchfordus.com/webinars. And again, you can use the question and answer panel on the bottom of your screen or top of your screen, depending on how it's laid out, to be able to ask questions. We can go through those questions as they come up. I will be presenting some of the material. We also have Chad here who will be presenting some of the material. And during that process, whoever's not presenting will be watching the Q&A panel and keeping an eye open for any questions. Again, my name is Mike Magee. I am a certified prosthetist orthotist. I am the global education manager for Blatchford. I've been with Blatchford. We just hit my 13-year anniversary. So it's been a while. It's been a great ride. It's been a lot of fun. And I've been involved with the Orion since the get-go in 2010. So I've been around the Orion for a very long time. I know I've got to see a lot of really big successes with it. We also have Chad O'Connor on the line. And by the way, these are our QR codes for our contact information. You can scan that QR code and be able to get direct access to us. You can email us there on the email address that's listed, but if you scan the QR code, you can get our cell phone numbers and everything to be able to text us or call us as needed. When you fill that out, there's an opportunity to share your information back. Feel free to do that, and we can have your contact in my own personal cell phone. So again, thank you for being on. Chad, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, my name is Chad O'Connor. I'm a certified prosthetist, orthotist, clinical specialist for Blatchford, and I have been with Blatchford just over 5 years now. Prior to that, we're area manager and hip disc articulation specialist. Yeah, happy to be here with you.
Yeah, awesome, Chad. So like I said, what we're going to be doing today is talking about the Orion 3 specifically. We're going to talk about some of the evidence behind it. We're going to give a little bit of details on how it works. If you haven't ever used an Orion 3, or perhaps you haven't used one since the Orion 1 or even the Orion 2. There's been obviously quite a bit of changes. So we're going to be talking about those, talking about the evidence that supports the Orion 3. There's a lot of evidence that's supporting the Orion 3. And then we're going to talk about the new LCD update that occurred back in October and how the Orion 3 applies to that. And then, of course, there is a quiz. I didn't mention that in the beginning, but the way this works is there's a QR code at the end for the quiz. I will also be sending the quiz out via email. So once you complete that quiz, we'll see that, and that will be part of the sign-in sheet. So if you could fill out the quiz, I give everybody about a week to do that. So fill out the quiz sometime in the next week, and then we will be submitting those to ABC following that. So it'll be the first week of March. We'll be submitting those quiz or the sign-in sheet. So without further ado, Chad, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
All right, thank you, Mike. Yes, so the Orion 3, just like this says, in harmony with you, putting you back in control. Let's see if this will work. There it is. All right. So it responds proportionate and natural and a great stability. What that means for our K2 patients, right, is they can be confident in how it's going to react. It's going to provide that great stability, as well as very smooth and easy walking. A lot of times our K2 patients we need to make it as easy as possible, right? So this, the Orion creates that smooth and easy gait. It's very quick and simple programming, but there is a lot of fine tuning that you can do. 90% of the time, you don't need to do any fine tuning. But maybe for some of the K2 patients, you may want to, you may find that it's beneficial to go into a few of these things, which Mike will talk about kind of towards the end here. All right, so the key benefits of the Orion 3, it's constantly monitoring. So it's always monitoring where patient's at in real time. It's varies the resistance. So the key here is that going down slopes, going down stairs, or even steps, it's going to be able to vary that resistance depending on the flexion of the knee, providing the best stability possible. And then it has a unique pneumatic swing extension, which provides smooth and easy initiation. There is no mechanical spring to overcome, so it actually is very easy to initiate that swing flexion and provides a smooth and efficient gait. And then, of course, like I said, app-based programming in less than 2 minutes with about a dozen steps. And lastly, we have the Orion 3 is protected against water damage, IP55 rating. Talk about that here in just a minute of why that could be beneficial for our K2 patients too. All right, so first let's talk about the Oasis 1 study. Mike, in a minute, will talk about why, what you have to show in order to meet the criteria of the new CMS guidelines for K2. The Oasis 1 study is one of those tools in the toolbox to be able to show proof of why the Orion is a good, viable option for our K2 patients. So first of all, the Oasis 1 was a retrospective analysis of 4 different microprocessor knees. It was published in the Journal of Rehabilitation and Assistive Technologies Engineering journal. The authors were all Hanger employees, and the key is that it was not associated with a specific manufacturer. There's been a lot of research on microprocessor knees since their introduction into our field, but there's not a lot that compares knees and or that don't have a inherent manufacturer bias. So this was done by Hanger, no manufacturer involved, and it looked at kind of 4 main knees at the time. And it was 602 unilateral transfemoral amputees from 2016 to 2020. That is a very large number in our industry for a study. The things that it looked at were outcome measures for mobility, health and well-being, quality of life, and then falls history. I focus a lot on the falls history because that's a big reason why we prescribe or decide to fit a microprocessor knee on our patients, is to decrease falls. So it looked at the number of falls in the previous 6 months, resulting in a hospital or physician visit. So the takeaway from this was, as I said, quality of life, patient satisfaction, higher mobility, and reduction in falls. Let's look at this quality of life. Half of all Orion 3 patients rated their quality of life at an 8 out of 10 or higher. And patient satisfaction, half of all Orion 3 patients rated their satisfaction with their amputee status. So that's beyond their prosthetic use. That's actually their just overall being an amputee. How are they feeling about their overall life? Higher mobility, so proven higher levels of mobility were attained with the Orion 3 compared to non-microprocessor knees. We're going to talk about in just a minute how, as somebody progresses, how the Orion 3 can keep up with them and adapt to their changing needs. And then reduction in falls. As I said, this is kind of the most, one of the biggest parts of this study because we want to decrease trips and falls, especially for our K2 patients. That's a very big reason to be fitting a microprocessor knee. So the question was, have you had a fall in the previous 6 months that resulted in a hospital or physician visit? The reason why that is or important in the way that it's worded is it was yes/no responses. So therefore, it's very easy to quantify. And an injurious fall had to result in a physician visit. So therefore, it's very easy to remember. So they're significant falls. It's not just a little bit of a stumble, they catch themselves, they're significant falls. Okay. The downside to that question, though, is that it did not account for multiple qualifying falls because it was yes/no question. It wasn't how many times did you fall in the last 6 months. It was, did you have a fall? So they could have had 3 falls or they could have had 1 fall, and it would have been the same response. Incidents were then recorded for each participant and then compared to the historical documentation of non-microprocessor knee users and their fall incidents. And what that found was out of those knees, there were only 2 that had a statistically significant reduction in self-reported injurious falls. So Mike will go into in a minute that you have to prove that technology has the capability of reducing trips and falls. And this is one study that you can point to that says that. Why is that a big deal as far as reduction in falls and the takeaway of the OASIS study? So directly from the paper, the authors stated that the ability for the sea leg and Orion to significantly reduce injurious falls compared to non-microprocessors would suggest that when stability and falls reduction is considered a primary aim, then these models may be more indicated. So just showing that you can point to that to your pairs and say, this is why I'm deciding on this particular device and why I'm deciding on the Orion to fit for my K2 patients or all patients. All right, moving on to actually what the Orion does and why did it perform so well in that study? Well, it is microprocessor controlled stance and swing. I think we all know that. It has situational awareness, enhanced stability performance, and then it has this natural efficient motion. And then it is suitable for K2 to K4 users, and that has always been in our IFU. All right, so going into the key features, situational awareness, enhanced stability performance with the controlled stance support, dynamic slope and stair descent, standing support, stumble recovery, and supported sitting. And then into our natural efficient motion of our swing phase. So before I go into the details of the enhanced stability performance, let's talk briefly about this IP rating. It is IP65 and, excuse me, IP55, apologies. The benefit to this is it is tested at a water jet of 1/4 inch diameter from all directions, and it's sprayed into it. So you don't have to worry about getting it wet. You could be kayaking, it could be splashed by water. You could hose it off, you could be washing your car, things like that. Other situations like you could get some fluid on it, whether that's bodily fluid, something like that, and you could take it and rinse it off, hose it off. You don't have to worry about it. So I can think of some situations where that can be very beneficial to be able to rinse it off, clean it that way, and not have to worry about any damage due to the water. So going into the controlled stance support and what this means. Controlled stance support is that supportive hydraulic resistance during normal gait. So during stance phase throughout the gait cycle, it releases immediately before swing phase. So it's going to keep that stability and that safety right up into that last minute and then release right before swing. So providing the optimal safety throughout the most important part of gait. And now we have a new and improved stance flexion control. So what that really means, let's go into what that means, because stance flexion is thought of, we all know kind of what stance flexion is, right? The way we've designed it into the Orion 3 is when it's turned on, it actually creates a higher yield rate than normal. So meaning you can stop faster going down a slope, for example, if the knee recognizes a rapid flexion moment, it's going to ramp up resistance right away. So therefore, giving more support immediately and having that higher resistance gives stability, confidence, and overall safety. So think about our K2 patients as they're going down a slope, a gradual slope or something, or even for this matter, you're walking in a parking lot and their heel comes down on a little bit of a pebble or a little bit of a raised crack in the parking lot, right? That can cause a rapid flexion moment like that. And the knee recognizes that and it's going to ramp up resistance right away, giving even more control and more support. And then overall for our very active patients, this feature can also help them stop faster. You can usually stop within two or three steps faster than if that feature was turned off. Then going into our dynamic slope and stair descent. So as the knee flexes, it increases resistance. So here you'll see it starts at yellow, and then as the knee is flexing, that red indicates an increased resistance to flexion, providing more support. So it gives safety, confidence for our patients to get down stairs or slopes or single steps even. But the other thing it also does is it actually promotes a more load bearing onto the prosthetic side. So therefore, it's taking more pressure off the sound side and overall providing a more straight gait, if you will, or a posture. So decreasing overall hip, back, and shoulder problems from a constant kind of overuse injuries. There we go. And standing support. Let's go into, lastly, most people are familiar with standing support. What ours does, the Orion does, is it's going to give that standing support in a flexed position or also in full extension. So you can see in this video, she's got her knee slightly flexed and it increases and locks in that position. But in a full extension position, it will also lock in that. So the reason there is, think about if you're standing on a slope with a fixed ankle, and if you're facing downward, that knee's going to want to just buckle all the time. So patients, if it doesn't lock in full extension, they either have to bend the knee slightly, which drops their hip, and on that side, and then it'll lock. So either way, they're standing kind of off balance, or they have to constantly be fighting and pulling back with their glutes in order to stabilize the knee and keep it straight, but it's never actually fully locking. So with the Orion 3, they can stand on that slope for just 0.8 of a second. It locks in full extension, and then they can relax and stand equal body weight between both legs without their hips dropping and keeping a much more comfortable position for their pelvis and low back. Overall, just improving limb loading and reducing that load on lower back. This can be adjusted on how sensitive it is or how quickly it engages. The normal is 0.8 of a second, so it doesn't take that long to do. And then stumble recovery. If there's an interruption in swing phase, it's going to have that increased resistance, but then it's going to continue to ramp up that resistance with weight loaded on it until they get their sound side in front of them. And then there's also a pneumatics kick in to help kick it out even faster once you off weight it. And then supported sitting, the same thing as that increased resistance going downstairs, the same thing happens. As the knee is flexed, that resistance increases. So if you think of the lever arm increases as you're sitting, and so if that hydraulic resistance stayed the same, eventually you get that drop-off effect into the chair. But By increasing the resistance as the knee flexes, it matches the increased lever arm, therefore giving more support for patients to sit down without having to rely on the armrest as much or their sound side. Giving much more support, confidence, safety, as well as encouraging a better posture for their hips and low back. All right, so during swing phase, like I said earlier, the Orion3 has that optimal release timing. So it's going to give safety and stability all the way up to the last possible minute and then release right when you need it for swing phase. And as there is no extension, no mechanical spring to overcome, it smoothly transitions into the pneumatic extension assist. And then it provides a variable cadence that way. Let's go into the optimal stance release. It, as I said, releases at the last part of stance, very easy, and you don't need very much motion to initiate that swing phase. No mechanical spring. So I've actually seen patients, osseointegrated patients with osseointegration who can feel everything up in the implant, right? I've had patients actually feel the mechanical spring engage on other knees. And in putting on the Orion or the Lynx, they not felt that spring at all. So having that pneumatic extension assist provides a very smooth control and very smooth transition. So providing comfort. It also provides safety because it's really getting out there quick, and confidence. And then heel rise control is a newer feature that provides basically a low level of hydraulic resistance. So I think of it, if you increase your speed, it's going to recognize that you're going faster and you're going to have excessive heel rise. So it increases the hydraulic heel rise control to therefore prevent excessive heel rise, therefore going faster, quicker. So what that means for our K2 patients, obviously they're not a variable cadence, they're a single speed ambulator at this time. But we're always trying to encourage our patients, right, to get to the next level, right? So if you're fitting a patient that's at K2 and they might have that potential to go up to that K3, when they eventually progress with the help of PT and exercise, when they get to that point, they're going to have a knee that can adapt with them, and you can now change it into multi-speed and have this feature. So as somebody is walking and then all of a sudden they increase their speed, you can see the top with the heel rise control off. You'll see this excessive heel rise, and it takes that many more steps just to catch up. Versus with heel rise control, it's a lot fewer steps to be at the increased speed. So therefore going faster, even quicker. All right, and then adaptive speed control. It's almost like we have 5 gears in a car, where as you change your speed, it's going to shift gears and adapt into a more extension assist. It recognizes it by cadence, and it changes the pneumatics to push the leg out faster, keeping up with patients. And then terminal swing dampening. That's where at the very kind of end, making sure that the knee is straight in full extension, but yet not slamming into that full extension stop. So therefore, creating a nice, smooth, comfortable transition, but also giving confidence for our patients to know that the knee is straight and they're landing on a nice, stable leg. And then the Orion3 has 3 modes. Flexion lock, that's it's great for a lot of different scenarios, and it would be programmed at either a fixed an angle. I've got patients that have snowboarded and they keep it at 5 degrees. And that's, so there's no resistance between full extension to whatever that angle is. So it could be set at full extension, which people use for push-ups or just standing for a long period of time. They can just turn that on. Got other people that have it set at like 40 degrees. So it's therefore no resistance from full extension down to that 40-degree stop. A lot of different scenarios for that. Cycling mode, that's great for free motion. And then lastly is the training mode. Training mode is a great tool for our K2 patients. All these modes you're going to activate by pressing the minus button, and to get out of it, you're going to hold down the minus button. But training mode is an additional mode where it's really, I like to think of it a lot about physical therapy, almost like a physical therapy mode. So what it does is it turns off standing support. So why is that important? That is a great tool to use for training stair descent. When somebody starts to learn how to go downstairs, it's nice to not have to worry about standing support turning on. So training mode will turn off that. And then if their knee was programmed as a multi-speed ambulator, but let's say in physical therapy, they want to focus on just gait mechanics, maybe on a treadmill, then they can turn on training mode and it will switch the knee into a single speed mode. Therefore, for gait training on treadmill, it can be just focused on that one speed, and just the patient's able to focus on the just gait mechanics and improving their overall step. So power optimization, this is, there is an off switch, and I do kind of reference it like a complete kill switch, meaning that it's going to sever the tie to the battery, and that helps really conserve battery. I've had patients in the past that go camping for more than 10 days, and they're able to turn it off at night and conserve that battery, and it will last that whole time. It also won't charge unless it's turned on, though. So there is a battery life indicator, so patients can always check what their battery is. It is normally a three plus battery life if you don't turn it off ever. And if the battery ever dies, or it will just be a high resistance. So it's always in a high resistance if you have it turned off, or if the battery does run out. And one reason why that battery does last so long is there's also the sleep mode. So when there's no movement happening, it's going to go into a sleep mode and conserve battery use. And then there is the audible warnings for if there is a battery drained, or it'll give the patients the information they need to either get it plugged in, or they'll have to go find a charger, or just know that it might go to the high resistance if they get that indicator and they don't have their charger with them. So who is the Orion3 for? Obviously, I've been talking a lot about K2 patients, but it is suitable for all activities, or a lot of activities. So K2 all the way up to even the low K4. This knee will keep up with you even into if you need to get across the street real quick and you need to take some running steps, it will keep up with you there too. Max user weight is 275. It is great for, as you can see here, patients out kayaking, young mother, got a grandmother that likes gardening, a fitness guru balancing on the leg. That's a good example of a full extension lock, or the standing support engaging. So for a wide range of patients that this is, and it can be programmed. As I said, the programming is 1.5 minutes long, but there is a lot that you can fine tune if you need to, or if you want to. and it does work for a wide range of patients. Everything from, as I said, a grandmother that just wants to play with their grandkids, up to somebody that enjoys running marathons on obviously on a running leg, but still very active individuals. It's going to be the normal contraindications as far as they need to have the ability to know about a microprocessor and charging it, and be able to understand the cues, the audible cues of a microprocessor. I think we all know that. As I said before, the IP55 rating, it is 3-year warranty. K3 is 275-pound weight limit. One of the great benefits of the Orion and the Lynx is having the 4 different proximal adapters. So the most common is the rotating pyramid with shift. So all of the adapters have an AP slide with them. But if you get one with the rotating pyramid, but then realize, oh, you know what, I need an even lower profile, you don't have to send the whole knee back. You can actually just get the M36 threaded adapter, and you swap out the pyramid. And that adapter still has the AP slide as well. So you can really fine tune the alignment and make adjustments if you need to. So what type of foot can you put under the Orion 3? You've got you've got all of our feet. You don't have to use a Blatchford foot, but we feel like the hydraulic ankles work very well under there. But let's say if you are putting it under a K2 patient and you need to use a K2 foot as well, then you can also use the Avalon K2, or the Navigator is a great option. That has the same keel as the Avalon, but no hydraulic ankle, but it still has a multi-axial snubber on the top. So it does provide very great motion, but it's also very lightweight and low profile. And I'm going to hand this over to Mike to continue.
Thanks, Chad. We're going to pivot a little bit here. And hold on just one second here. Sorry, I'm trying to get remote access back. Not seeing that option, but there we go. Okay. So sorry about that. But yes, we're going to be pivoting now and talking a little bit about the new Medicare update, and specifically, how does it apply to the Orion 3? First off, if you have not read the LCD, I highly recommend it. It's got a lot of information in there that you may not realize. For instance, in the policy article, they actually went into a lot of description on the K levels and what it means and what a typical K3 ambulator looks like, typical activities of a K3 ambulator or a K2 ambulator. And some of that information was surprising. It doesn't say anything specifically about they can't use a assisted device, for instance. You can be K3 and still use an assisted device. So it's got a lot of really good information if you have not taken a look at it. So that's the LCD article. You can find it on the Medicare website. And then if you scroll all the way to the bottom, then you can get to the actual policy article that gives the additional detail. And I'm trying to click here, but it's not letting me. Chad, just make sure you're not touching your screen. So what were the new LCD changes? Again, this took place in September of last year. They basically extended coverage for the hydraulic, pneumatic, or microprocessor knees to K2 beneficiaries, provided certain criteria are met. So you've got to meet this additional criteria. And what are those? Well, it basically said, all right, Chad, you're going to have to control it. For some reason, it's not letting me control. If you could advance to the next slide or next arrow. Basically what they did is they've got all this criteria, and you've got to meet this criteria. And first off, the beneficiary has had to have a clinical evaluation to determine their functional level. And then second, supporting documentation in a medical record has to outline in the context of the beneficiary's overall medical health the rationale for a selection of fluid, pneumatic, or microprocessor knee, including how it's going to improve their functional health outcome, like their fall reduction or energy prevention or lower energy expenditure, and then also how it's going to help them accomplish their activities of daily livings. So it also had that lower level systems like fluid, pneumatic, or microprocessors have been considered and ruled out based on the beneficiary's specific functional and medical needs. So that was a big component there. You don't have to rule out every knee system on the market, but you have to rule out that other things have been considered, basically. So let's talk about the Orion3, and does it meet that initial criteria? Well, first, does it improve the beneficiary's functional health outcome, like fall reduction, energy expenditure, lower expenditure, or lower energy expenditure? And does the Orion3 do that? I think Chad talked at length about the Oasis paper, and it definitely showed that. It showed that you did have better mobility, lower energy expenditures, and certainly a lower fall incidence rating. So they definitely had less falls using the Orion3, and that's proven, a well-documented study, thanks to the folks there at Hanger and all the work they're doing in their research division. And that was one of the studies that came out of that division. And then the second criteria was it has to help the beneficiary accomplish their activities of daily living. So let's talk about ADLs and some of the things that the Orion3 can help with. Specifically, let's start with standing support. Chad talked about our standing support and how that works. Well, remember, ours works in full extension, not just in flexion. Most knees on the market need a little bit of flexion for them to engage the standing support. Ours is in full extension. Some would say, do you need it in full extension? Well, I think a lot of people would really like it when they're doing things like standing at the counter and a grandkid or somebody comes up behind them and pushes on their leg. There's no way this knee is going to flex. It's going to be stiff because they're in standing support, even in full extension. So it's going to help them with their ADLs, brushing their teeth, cooking, anything where they're standing still, even standing at a game watching their grandkids play a sport. Yield rate. That's another way that we can help with their ADLs. We have this progressive resistance, meaning as the knee flexes, the resistance is going to ramp up. And it ramps up to a controlled amount. We can define how much that ramps up, and that allows it to be a nice, smooth descent from fully extended, fully standing down into the chair. So it allows a nice, easy stand to sit. That's improving their ADLs. Traversing downhill ramps easier. They can walk down their driveway. Walking down their driveway, for instance, is one of the things that they talk about in the new policy article. So again, read the policy article and you can pull some examples straight from that and identify what your patient's doing and relate it back to that policy article. It can help them go downstairs. Maybe they live in a house that's got 2 stairs or 2 steps leading out into the grass, into their yard. They need to be able to do that to get out of the house. So it can help with their ADLs by allowing easier stair usage. So those are just some of the many, many examples of how the Orion3 can help with their ADLs. But then if you look back at the LCD, it said, okay, that's what's required for fluid, pneumatic, or microprocessor. But then if you want to use a microprocessor, there's a few additional criteria. And what is that criteria? Well, first, it's got to be an electronic microprocessor knee that's indicated for functional level 2. So it's got to be indicated for a K2 user. You can't just assume it's going to work. It's got to be indicated for that particular patient profile. And the knee has to have integrated technology that allows the knee to detect when the user trips or stumbles and can automatically adjust to stabilize the knee unit, like stumble recovery. And then the other 2 criteria are a little bit more obvious. One, they have to be able to make use of a product that requires daily charging. That's a little bit obvious. And also they have to be able to understand and respond to error alerts and alarms. Again, that's a fairly obvious one. So really the first 2 are the 2 big criteria that you have to make sure they're able to meet. And so let's look at the Orion3 and does it meet that? The first extra criteria was it's got to be indicated for a functional level 2. How do you find that? How do you know if it's indicated for a K2? Well, there's really only one way that I'm aware of to know that the microprocessor knee or electronic knee is indicated for a specific activity level, and that's to consult the IFU. The IFU that's from the manufacturer, you can look at it and see, does it say it's okay for K2? And here in our IFU, it states it is for activity level 3 there, but then it also says there may be a number of users, activity level 2 all the way up to 4, who benefit from the additional stability offered by the device. So again, it's indicated right there on that page. It's also indicated in the technical data page under activity level 2, 3, and 4. Now, some might say, did we, that's pretty easy to change an IFU post September of 2024. But when I created this slide, I pulled the IFU that we submitted to PDAC back in 2020 when we had to submit for PDAC for 5856 L code. So this was the IFU that was submitted years ago. And in fact, this is in the statement from the IFU from way back in the early Orion days, the Orion 1 and 2 days. So it's something we've always believed in, always agreed with. Obviously, we couldn't recommend it because of the Medicare billing. So we know it works great for K3, and Chad talked a lot of the benefits of that, but we also believe it's indicated for K2, even up to K4. The microprocessor knee has to have integrated technology that allows the knee to detect when the user trips or stumbles and can automatically adjust to stabilizing the knee. Does the Orion 3 have stumble recovery? Well, clearly it does. Chad talked about that. It talked about the resistance ramping up as the knee flexes, especially during a stumble. So you can watch on that video. It doesn't, let me play it again. It doesn't start at its normal yellow resistance level, if you will. It starts at a red resistance level when she lands on it there. So it's starting at a really high resistance because the knee is already flexed. And then as it flexes, it ramps up even more. So it's going to provide even additional resistance as the patient stumbles, really making it supportive and helpful as they fall. And again, that's the resistance boost as they land on it, flex, it's going to be stiff, but as they do even more on it, it's going to really ramp up that resistance. So who are we talking about? Which K2 ambulators or wearers or users, however you want to phrase it, how are we, which K2 ambulators are we referring to? Well, you can use the amputee mobility predictor. You can use lots of different things to determine K levels for patients. But in my book, when I was in clinical practice, what I felt like one of the more, I don't know if stressful is the right word, but one of the things where you really have to put a lot of thought into it is the patient K2 or K3? Not always, of course. Sometimes it's pretty clear cut, but there are times when you're looking at a patient and talking to them and doing outcome measures and doing different things and trying to decide which line do they fall on? Do they go on the K3 side and you give them the better components and allow them to really maximize their potential? Or do you give them something, classify them as K2? And if you do that, then you've got to give them K2 componentry. Historically, remember, you had to give them the K2 components, which if you do that, maybe you're limiting their potential. So there was a bit of a, which way do we go on this? These are the people we're talking about, those patients that are kind of right on the line. You're not really sure, are they K2 or are they K3? You're kind of stretching it to K3, but you're going to allow them to have the better componentry. Well, now you can appropriately put them as K2 and give them the componentry that they need to be able to progress and perform like they need to be able to perform. So that's the patients we're talking about, those that are kind of right on the bubble. So let's talk about the Orion 3 specific settings, some things that we can do specifically for the Orion 3 to make it for a K2 user. First off, it's very clear, cut and dry. When you're programming it, there's an option. If you program it a certain way, there's a programming option to make it single speed or multi-speed. Again, Chad talked a lot about the swing speed and how it can vary, and we effectively have 5 different gears, as he said. Well, this makes it to one, instead of 5 swing extension assist gears, let's bring it down to 1. Let's make it 1 consistent speed so that the user knows exactly what the knee is doing. So we can do that. And then, of course, over time, as they get gait training or therapy or whatever it may be, we can increase in the multi-speed and allow the knee to do what it needs to do to maximize that potential. A couple of other settings that are really useful for the K2 users. First off, again, this here is our swing speeds. You can see we have in this red one is kind of a slow swing speed. Yellow is a medium swing speed, and green is the fast swing speed. Well, you can see it's different gears, right? So you've got a slow swing speed, medium, and a fast, and the knee's going to keep up with them however they go. Well, maybe for a single speed user, maybe you just make them all the same speed. You can go in there artificially and make them all the same speed, so it's very predictable for those particular users. Super handy. Stance reselect. What that allows us to do is change the timing to allow a user who's maybe just learning how to walk, or maybe a really slow walker because they're using a walker or crutches or a cane that makes them really slow down. Well, we can change this timing to a max delay to allow them the most time possible to allow the knee to switch in from stance to swing before it reverts back into stance, making it super easy for users to be able to learn and understand what it takes to make the knee go from stance to swing. Allows brand new amputees, brand new individuals with an amputation to be able to walk easier. Yield rate. This is the progressive resistance that Chad and I talked about that ramps up the resistance as the knee flexes, allowing more control into a seated position. You can change that. You can adapt it. You can make it initially easy to start sitting and then ramp it up more, or vice versa. Make it really a lot of support at the very beginning so they have a lot of stance flexion support, and then maybe ramp up a little bit less. You can fine tune that how you need for your specific patient. Training mode. That is a mode specifically to help patients when they're learning how to walk. What that's going to do is artificially or when it's turned on, it's going to make the swing speed one speed, again, adding predictability for the particular user. It's going to turn off standing support so they can practice standing and sitting without that important standing support kicking in and causing trouble. So those are a few of the features. There's a whole bunch of features that are really helpful for the K2. And one of the, I guess, overwhelming things that makes it easier for K2 is the fact that we can adjust a lot of stuff in it. We can fine tune just about anything. If you name a feature, we can fine tune it on this particular device, making it adaptable, again, for your specific user. We didn't take that control away from you. We allow you to do that to make it easier for a fast walker or a slow walker, whatever it is that you need to do. That's the beauty of the Orion 3. So in summary, the knee is constantly monitoring in real time what the user is doing. It's going to vary the resistance, this hydraulic resistance, constantly to help keep the user safe in a wide range of situations. And then once they're safe, the pneumatic swing is really going to provide that extension assist to make it a nice, fluid, easy walk when they're walking. So it's very smooth reacting for the user. We have an app programming that I know I talked about fine-tune settings, but the app walks you through the, no pun intended, it walks you through the programming super, super quickly. If you take more than 2 minutes, you've done something wrong. The programming is just that easy, very quick and easy. It does most of the thinking for you in the sense that it reads what the patient's doing and modifies those settings to be just right for the patient. And then new with the IP55 rating, meaning you can, the user doesn't have to worry about what environment they're in. They can, like Chad said, they're kayaking. They can even fall off the kayak and get out of the water, stand back up, and the water is going to drain out of it. So we're very confident in the waterproof level of our knee. Now, the next slide is a little bit of a teaser. So we talked a lot about Orion 3 and how it's great for the K2 user and the K3 and potentially even up to the K4 user, depending on what the patient needs. But we've got a product coming. It's coming soon, so be on the lookout for it, that is going to be made specifically for that particular patient profile, specifically for the low K2 all the way up to the low K3 level. It's got everything you would expect in that type of a knee, you know, a lock type feature where it's locked in stance, locked in swing, all the way up to one that yields and is in swing phase also. So it's very adaptable, tons of really neat stuff on this knee. So keep on the lookout for that. If you are going to Academy next week, come by, say hi, say you listened to my webinar this week. I will be there, Chad will be there, and Chad will be doing a workshop at 12:10 in the Kennesaw room at Academy on the Avior. So if you want to know more about a brand new microprocessor knee for the K2 users, sign up for that workshop. Again, it's 12:10 at Academy at the Avior at the in the Kennesaw room. So again, want to thank you for being on the webinar. And there is a quiz QR code right there. So if you want to take the quiz, go for it. I'll be sending out a quiz link if the QR code is not working. Sometimes people have trouble with that. So I'll send it out in a link format. But we've got a few extra minutes. We've got about 9 minutes here. So if anybody has any additional or any questions, period, we haven't had one yet. So not additional, any questions, type away. Happy to answer. If you have any questions. I'll pause here for that. And again, come by, say hi to both Chad and I at Academy, and we will be happy to talk to you about the Avior and answer any Orion questions. No questions? Somebody's got to have a question. Okay, well, I guess not. So I'll stick around for a little bit longer. Those of you that want to drop off, feel free. Just take that quiz there. You can scan it. And again, I give everybody about a week to complete that. And I will be submitting that next week's Academy. So it probably won't be submitted until the following week, the first week of March. So that's when it'll go to Academy. Again, thank you for attending. Be on the lookout for next month's webinar. We do these every month and love doing them. And thank you for joining. I'll sit on in case there are any additional questions. That's my email and phone number there if you have any other questions that pop up. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you all for joining. Again, that's my email and phone number there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next month.